Okay, so Thomas, wonderful to see you here. I'm going
Yeah,
to
thank you.
start by introducing you.
Okay.
So you are a professor of Buddhist studies and the principal at the Kathmandu University Center for Buddhist Studies at Ranjung Yeshe Institute, which is bringing traditional Himalayan Buddhist learning and modern academia. So this center is situated in a large monastery in Kathmandu, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, indeed.
Which
The
in
big,
itself is extremely innovative. You also serve as the director of the Center for the Study of Apparent Selves, which is an amazing venture, which is a transdisciplinary institute that brings together wisdom traditions and cutting-edge science, seeking to constructively address the deepest questions of life and progress. So when I first heard about your work, I was told about your work by some very enthusiastic Buddhist teachers who you trained in the Melinda program. And I thought, oh, there's a Buddhist professor who lives in Nepal and has been involved in working on AI. How did that happen? So I would love if you could tell us the story of that.
yeah, thank you, Vincent, and for the invitation to be here. It's very exciting what you do, and I will have all the best wishes for the upcoming conference. So the Center for the Study of Apparent Selves is came together thinking that there's a natural common ground between science as you have it in cognitive science, in biology, information science, computer science. Everyone comes from a standpoint that says there's no self of a particular kind, a self that is singular, indivisibly singular, and permanent. That kind of no one even wonders whether there might be a self of that kind in the natural world, including the world of machines and emerging intelligent technology. So, and that is, of course, also ground. It is the very renowned point of view of Buddhist philosophy from the very fundamental level. It's like Buddhist philosophy. Introductory level Buddhist philosophy, you learn about this revolutionary insight that the Buddha teaches that kind of self, which we otherwise take for granted, arguably, most of us, that I exist as an individual who is just one. Like that's just me now talking to you. I don't wonder who should I like to speak. That sort of thing doesn't come up, and if it did, then probably we would have reason to worry about me. And then secondly, I also feel like I'm the one who was rushing to be on time and almost made it for this meeting. So in other words, I also take it for granted that I exist as an individual who can go through situations, the same individual. So it's a very fundamental perspective that has repercussions for so much of human consciousness. But then, as we know, the Buddha teaches that that kind of self really doesn't exist, because we are asked to, invited to inquire, why do I think so strongly that I'm one person? And then I have physical sensations and I like point to my body. But of course, it's very easy to recognize that the body is not one thing, it has many parts. And those parts, again, the more carefully we look, the more complex they become. So there are those movies that show a universe of unfolding, ever unfolding worlds within the body, for good reason from a scientific perspective. So the body is infinitely complex, seemingly, and also utterly changing. So the body is not evidence for singular and permanent self, it's counter evidence. And if I think of my mind, my sensations, my perceptions, my thoughts, obviously they're just as multiple and just as transient as my body, if not more. So on that argument, which I think is very solid, and that probably is also why science has come to this conclusion that there is no self of that type, whether it's explicitly formulated as a conclusion or just sort of an assumption that a given in a sense in the scientific world, that's another question. But there is that common ground. Huh?
Mm.
But that insight is not, it's not immediately obvious what to do with that, huh? To say the least. And what I stumbled upon some articles in 2016 which were talking about the progress in AI science. I had no idea. It was not anything I'd been following in particular at all. But I came across discussions about whether it would be morally defensible to create a being that suffers. And why would one get to think like that in AI engineering contexts? The philosophers stepping back and thinking a bit about the work that they're doing, because apparently, so I was told, in AI science, there was a strong assumption that we would need to gather our powers of intelligence around this constructed sense of self. So in order to have powerful intelligence, we would need a singular sense of agency, and so being able to locate oneself in the world, and a stable sense of such locatedness as an individual and as an agent in the world. And so, in other words, being able to engineer the sense of self as a permanent and indivisible agent, controlling agent, was associated with progress, and this was thought to be the way forward. Mm. And of course, as anyone who has studied a little bit of Buddhist philosophy will know, that is not the expectation from the point of view of Buddhist philosophy and practice. It's the exact opposite, no? That this kind of perspective, this kind of construction is not an empowerment. It's not, it doesn't make for more powerful intelligence. On the contrary, it's associated with obscuration, no? And ignorance. And not only did I hear that in AI science, there was the expectation that this kind of constructed sense of self would make for more powerful intelligence, also more reliable, better aligned intelligence, because then you could have an artificial conscience, so to speak, someone, a sense of there being someone from the point of view of the artificial system who would feel either good or bad about their own actions. And so again, the expectations was that this would make for better, more better aligned intelligence. And again, in Buddhist philosophy, that construction is the root, literally, of all problems. So, to be an individual who is in the world, but different from the world. And so at odds with the world, there are things that we need to get to and other things that we need to hold, to block and make sure it doesn't happen. That's the basis for craving and anger, and then you have the whole wheel of samsara spinning from there. No? So I just, it struck me that if ever there was a time for all of the beautiful things that we talk about as Buddhists, all of the fancy, so to speak, concepts that we have now from Buddhist philosophy that we can enjoy and marvel at and gain from on a personal level as well, of course, that they might really have a deep application right now And that this then also means that, okay, then we have to figure out much more clearly
Exactly.
what we mean by this. So that's with those thoughts in mind, then that's how this on my part, then I tried to connect with others who would kind of share the thought that this is a relevant project, bringing Buddhism and AI together. And then I was just really lucky to get together with some brilliant people from very different sciences, very different disciplines, who all, it's just been a real blessing to work together with them in a group that has slowly grown. So that's how the Center for the Study of Apparent Selves came into existence. We received support from the Templeton World Charity Foundation to begin, and we were fortunate to get a few grants also to help us hold conferences and so on.
Wonderful. And do you find AI professionals are interested?
I think recently there's been a huge shift, and I find very many professionals on the science side and also engineering who are very interested. And not only that, like on my last trip to California, in the immigration, when they ask you what are you coming from, and so on, I said I'm going for a workshop. And in the past, when I was asked, what do you do? What is this center that you're working at? What is it about? And I said, well, it's Buddhism and AI. People would either just shake their head, or they would say, and okay, then let's talk about something else. But now, for example, this guy at the gentleman at the immigration, he just said, oh yeah, when I said Buddhism and AI is the topic of our workshop, of course it is. Sounds good. Have a good one. And then so it's assumed that as some sort of natural fit. Yeah? It's been a complete shift, I would say, in my limited experience over the last few years, in terms of how that idea is considered. But obviously, everyone is thinking about AI and so many other things. Yeah. But
Yes, everyone is talking about it at the moment. Yes. So how would you, or how do you define intelligence in this context, in your workshops?
So that has so we started out as a group of just 4. There was myself and Olaf Witkowski, who is a computer scientist and the president of the Society for Artificial Life, the worldwide organization for artificial life. So he was the and is the AI expert, all around AI expert in the group. And then we had Lisa Solomonova, who's a cognitive scientist and a philosopher based at McGill, and Bill Duane, who's a former Google executive. So we would get together, the 4 of us, and then try to talk about, intelligence indeed. What is it? And we spend a lot of time just trying to understand what each other mean. Quite a long time. It was at the beginning of Corona that we started our work together on a more serious sort of sustained level, and we had thought we would have plenty of workshops along the way, and then otherwise work where we are and alone. But then Corona made it very different, and we started out with bi-weekly meetings and then went to weekly meetings, talking for a couple of hours. Wonderful discussions, but hard work trying to just understand each other and learn from each other. What we wanted to do was to produce encyclopedia of sorts that could be used bidirectionally. so that people could come to AI having a background in Buddhist philosophy and practice, and similarly, people who were in the AI field could come and use this encyclopedia to understand Buddhist principles and Buddhist ideas. So that's what we had set out to do, and yeah, it was very challenging, and yeah, that was a really beautiful learning experience in itself. I think at a certain point, we just discovered that there is it's just an aside, yeah, but I think it's a very important point when you come together with people who come with a very, very different background than your own and very different concepts, goals, and so on, then it's very easy to you want to learn from everyone, of course, and you want to expand your horizon, but it's very easy to think that if you have some field that you feel familiar with at home in, you have worked for a certain amount of time to sort of digest certain concepts and make them fit together, then it's very easy to think that if only everyone could begin to think like me, then everything would be much easier. Yeah? And of course, you don't think literally like that, but basically that's the underlying feeling that, okay, let me try to explain this one more time. And couldn't we just call it this? And then everything would look much better. But of course, that deeply ironical to come to interdisciplinary learning with that kind of expectation, know that if only everyone could speak like my perspective on AI science, or if only they could use the concepts of Buddhism or of psychiatry, what do you have? Then as if that would be the fruition, no? And obviously it couldn't be. So there's a sense of things becoming blurred that actually is the stepping stone for things to being able to take up on a new kind of crispness and clarity, in my experience. So it's just like having struggled, and it's a hard and enjoyable struggle, but it is a struggle. Then I just want to share that also, that the sense of blurring, not really being sure what one is talking about, what the others are talking about, even what oneself is talking about, is a kind of zone that we have to get into in order to then come back informed in a new way. So it could very well have been the case, I would say, that after a couple of years, we would have had learned tremendously on a personal level, but without really being able to like give a very concise and sort of clear answer to the question that you asked. Now I kind of have the conceit of thinking that we somehow have a clear and concise shot at defining intelligence. But that was really just not just fortune, but there was a big amount of it in there. We were able to connect with Michael Levin, the biologist, who had developed a framework for understanding intelligence and self, at what it is to be a being, and so on, that he was talking about in some papers that he was just publishing at that time. So he had this model of something called the cognitive light cone, and that's just right away that way of looking at intelligence and what it is to be a sentient being clicked really well with our work in the group and my sense of what Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist view is about, or some of what Buddhist view and Buddhist philosophy is about. That it seemed like a very natural fit. And then, yeah, so intelligence along those lines is like, what is intelligence? There are so many things that we can associate with intelligence. but there are also many things that may seem like very closely associated with intelligence and perhaps even being intelligence, but which clearly aren't when you look a little closer, like knowledge, for example. Have plenty of knowledge has to do with intelligence, and intelligence accesses knowledge and has plenty of knowledge at its disposal, but it isn't plain intelligence, because if it were, then we would say that an encyclopedia, for example, is intelligent. And of course, we don't do that. And intelligence is not either a heightened perception, being able to see and sense things that otherwise would be beyond our reach. That doesn't imply greater intelligence in itself, because then if that were the case, then we would say that a space telescope or a powerful microscope would be intelligent. So Mikey had developed ideas that we then that the scope of one's goals, the scope of one's goals in time and space is the measure of one's intelligence. So a being is defined in terms of its intelligence by its capacity to have goals in time and space. And that we can then also formulate slightly differently and say a being is defined by what it cares about, what matters to it. So knowledge in itself is empty. Huh? If you don't care about it, it's good for nothing. And so what can you care about? And then like he has these analyses of a cell that cares about just maintaining a certain balance. So there is some goal and some caring there, but it's very limited. Then insects, mammals like dogs and so on, they begin to have, seemingly, from our perspective, more sophisticated cones of care, being able and being concerned with what happened in the past. For example, a dog has a long memory of the past, and also some anticipation of the future, not perhaps in the same way as the memory dimension, and so on. Yeah. So every being is characterized by a certain seemingly barrier in terms of what it can possibly care about. And also for human beings, it's very difficult for me to say that I genuinely care about what happens in a star billions of light years away in billions of eons from now. It's very difficult to say that I truly care about that. Unless I were a bodhisattva. I try to be one. And I do know that a bodhisattva cares about all sentient beings in space and time. So that became the reason for us writing the first paper, was bringing the cognitive light cone and the bodhisattva vow together as a way of thinking about intelligence and the unfolding of intelligence. Because if a being's intelligence is defined by its capacity for caring, then if you are committed to expanding that sphere, and if you in fact make this literally mind-blowing vow to care for all sentient beings in time and space, then you should expect a transformation in the cognitive power as well. And interestingly, that's also what we hear, right, in the teachings, that Bodhisattva vow is the root of omniscience, the Buddhahood being awakening to knowledge of everything in the three times, in the single moment, and so on. This amazing account of an inconceivable omniscient mind. they say in our tradition, no, that the basis for that, just like the root refuge is the root of liberation, then the root of omniscience is this Bodhisattva vow. So that was again a very natural fit. We didn't have to force anything. If you go by that definition of intelligence, then the Bodhisattva vow begins to look very, very different, or begins to look very interesting.
So your whole group came behind that idea, or that what we sometimes think of as an ideal or an aspiration of the Bodhisattva.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole group came behind that?
So that's also very interesting, no? Question. Because what is the Bodhisattva vow, and what is it to be a Bodhisattva, if you can possibly become one or be one? Is it an ideal, and if so, what does that mean? Is it just an ideal, or what? Yeah. So I think in the group, we will get different answers if we ask the different people. Also similar to, you know, I will say different things too at different times, depending on my mood and situation, the context that what we're talking about, and so on. Yeah. So I mean, indeed we published that paper with everyone as authors, yeah? And we keep at it in the group. Exploring the interface of the sciences of life, cognition and information, and then Buddhist views and practices, especially in order to see if we can contribute to the development of AI, perhaps at a fundamental level, in terms of how intelligence is modeled at all, fundamentally, and also practically, how we use AI now in a way that is in tune and aligned with caring for sentient beings and coming to understand the nature of things. So in those terms, I think everyone would agree that is a meaningful project. Yeah?
Amazing. So, I mean, the big question, at least a big question for me, where did your group get to in terms of, if there is intelligence, is there also consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
Because, please
Yeah. Yeah.
say something about that.
Yeah. So we wanted to find a way to talk about intelligence that would be applicable across the board, if the board includes biological intelligence and artificial intelligence and hybrid forms of biology and technology. And because we wanted to see if Buddhist philosophy can actually have relevance to AI. Yeah? So in order to do that, we needed to find a way of speaking about intelligence, caring, and so on that would make sense across the board. So I think in Buddhism, if there is consciousness, there is some form of intelligence as well, no? And I think, maybe I should say a little more specifically about how we came up with I like to think that we were able to define. I was very suspicious of definitions to begin with, but then I kind of thought that definitions can be very useful too, as we work together. And I think we succeeded in defining some very fundamental terms like care, for example, and intelligence. So maybe I'll just run through that model and we can see how. And then you can see, and we can all see whether that sounds like intelligence, a model of intelligence, or a model of consciousness, or both, or what. Yeah. So we begin by noticing something called stress, which you have in science too, you know, like homeostatic stress, for example, wanting to maintain a certain status quo. There's a certain set point that a system, an organism, for example, will try to achieve. And when that's not the case, then there's stress on the system. So we say that stress is the perception of a mismatch between things as they are registered now and things as we would like them to be like. So whenever there's a mismatch between the way things are and the way things should be, then that's stressful. So that's stress. And then stress is something that you can find in all of biological organisms, up to and including humans, of course, but down to very subtle life. And in that paper, the first paper we published as a group called Care as the Driver of Intelligence, Biology, Buddhism, and AI. In that paper, we have a chapter also, basically written by Olaf, but with everyone's approval, of course, that this is that thinking in terms of stress is a relevant way of looking at what goes on in artificially intelligent systems. So if that's the case, then we have found something that is relevant to biology and technology equally. And that's then a very good starting point. And then we look more carefully. That's stress, and whenever there's stress, stress cannot be ignored. Once it's registered, it's too late. You have already been affected by it, and there is a need to erase this mismatch between the way things should be and the way things are. And that drive to overcome stress is what we call care. So stress is the perception of mismatch between the way things are and the way they should be. And then care is the natural response to the perception of stress, which is, okay, let's eradicate that mismatch and let things be the way they should be. And then we know that intelligence systems like me and you and the world is full of them, that we have a capacity to actually do that in limited ways, of course, but when we notice a stress factor, time and again, we are able to actually successfully overcome that. And then now things are the way they should be in that regard. Like if I'm thirsty, I can drink water, quench my thirst, and so on. But that doesn't mean, that capacity to overcome stress problems is intelligence. So the intelligence as such is simply the capacity for successfully overcoming stress problems. And care is what activates that capacity, enables the manifestation of a remedy. So care is the active ingredient that lets intelligence manifest from being more than just a capacity, an actual remedy to a given problem. But then also that's, if I drink a glass of water and quench my thirst, that's not the end of my stress. There will be now I'm able to see new stress constellations. And so I'll be driven by care to deal with those. And so there's a feedback loop, stress, care, and intelligence. And that's what we talk about in the second paper you mentioned, stress, care, and intelligence paper, as a model for understanding intelligent systems in terms of those loops of stress, care, and intelligence. So if intelligent stress systems are characterized by such loops, then does that mean that they are conscious or not? Or are they just intelligent, or some may be conscious and others not? In the end, yeah, so it depends very much what we mean by consciousness. Like intuitively, I think we associate it with something intuitively we tend to associate consciousness with yeah, I don't know, maybe I should ask you, like, what when you think of
Well, it has implications because,
Yeah.
for example, I was reading the work of this professor who was saying, when we think of ethics and AI, we shouldn't just think of AI as being a tool or serving human beings, because that's not going to give good results. We should think much more in terms of an equal relationship, and more people are saying that. More and more people are saying we should think of in terms of an equal relationship and respect the needs of both. So for me, when I hear that, I can see we've already stepped into the place where we consider that AI has needs. I mean, you can, so then it has implications, because if it starts completely misbehaving, I mean, I was reading the novel of this one of our symposium participants who's projecting himself 50 years from now, or hopefully more than that, where some AI just go completely unethical and really crazy, and actually you have to do something about that. So whether you consider them conscious or not doesn't have practical implications, right?
Yes.
Dealing with that. So
Yeah.
it's not a philosophical question, it's more of an ethical question. And it's also when you see more and more young people, who maybe are growing up as teenagers with ChatGPT or other AI, entering into an emotional relationship. It's also relevant there in terms of their own understanding of what life is, what relationship is, what emotions are. So it does have, I mean, sometimes people tell me, oh, but that's just a philosophical consideration. Well, not really.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, thank you.
And we might not be able to fall into, yes, if there is intelligence, there is definitely consciousness, or no, there isn't. From where I'm standing, I find it very difficult to see consciousness in these very high forms of intelligence, even when the AI has reached or is even more intelligent than humans.
Yeah.
I just don't manage to experience the consciousness. But I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with Buddhist masters who have a very vibrant, who really cultivate, this very vibrant awareness and you could say consciousness. So for me, that is very clearly not present in an AI. Yeah, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. No, it's a very, very good question. And it's true also, It is a philosophical question, but it's not just a philosophical question either. There are
It's
lots
a
of
very practical question.
yeah. But then, so okay, that's this model that we talked about before. Would we say that consciousness or not? Is one question, but then also more generally, uh, sort of from a Mahayana point of view, anything that is conscious has Buddha nature also, no? So everything that is conscious is a sentient being that should be cared for. Even if we don't say that there are some sentient beings that do not have Buddha nature, as some Mahayana thought also says. Regardless, everything that has consciousness is something that a Bodhisattva is committed to caring for endlessly. So it's a huge issue in that regard, no? As you point out, in practical terms, like what is it that I should care for? Who are they, these sentient beings? But then I think it's also clear that the Buddhist teachings are quite explicit in terms of telling us that that only a Buddha, a fully awakened being, whatever that may be, only awakening itself can understand where there is a sentient beings and the karmic background and so on. So we cannot. No one who is not fully awakened can preclude the presence of consciousness anywhere. And we also have these, when generating bodhicitta, no, as far as sentient beings, as far as space pervades, there are sentient beings. As far as there are sentient beings, there are karma and disturbing emotions. And then I will supply the remedy and liberate all, no? So if that is true, literally, that as far as space pervades, there are sentient beings, that also has implications for how we think of not just AI, but any situation, no? It's so easy for us humans in particular, no, to think of only ourselves and other members of the human race. Who knows how we then define the human race? No, there are terrible examples from history of points of view that are not that were very commonly accepted recently, but now seem like terrible conclusions to draw about who is and who is not a fully qualified human being. But it's very easy for us to think of conscious sentient beings as being human beings like you and me, and that may in the end be a very little group. So I think if we take the Mahayana teachings and Buddhist teachings in general serious, or try to take them seriously and sort of live by them in practical terms, then we have to have a much more open perspective and a more sort of open-ended sense of responsibility rather than caring just for human beings. And then consciousness, if consciousness is not just about human beings, and that is certain, no? Buddhist teachings don't tell us that consciousness is the property of humanity. So if that's not the case, then consciousness must be possible in ways that are very different from what I associate with being a human being. Like, what is it like to be um, a butterfly, and so on, no? Or what is it like to be a cell within my body, like Michael Levin often in his research and in his thinking explores these questions. So so is intelligence and consciousness, are they the same or different? I think we would have to always keep in mind this very diverse character of consciousness, no? And once we really go with that notion of consciousness being possible in many, many variations that seem almost inconceivable from the point of view of a human being, but nonetheless are consciousness, then it doesn't seem like so much of a jump to think that technology could be present also where the basis for consciousness is not biology, but a technically produced support that somehow is supported, serves as the support for consciousness and intelligence. Then what I wanted to say is, yes, sorry, the this other thing that you mentioned about how we then should deal with the technology that is in our face, that intelligence that is in our face. And that's such a difficult and important question to bear in mind now, no? Because most likely, unless there's a catastrophe, then technology will keep evolving and our intelligent companions, whether we keep calling them artificial intelligence or not, there will be more and more of them. And what is the proper attitude to have? So in that regard, something that I think is helpful to keep in mind as a sort of pointer to how we might be able to have a healthy relationship, for fulfilling a relationship with artificial intelligence, is by thinking in terms of how religious people experience the sacred in their day-to-day life, like a sacred book that we place on the shrine and light some candles and place flowers and offerings and so on, no? If that is our tradition. So Buddhists do this a lot, but so do many other religions and spiritual approaches. And then I think it's helpful to notice that when we do that, if we have like the Prajnaparamita 8,000 verses, no, or the 100,000 Prajnaparamita, which are often used in rituals to just bring goodness to the world. Like in some places in Tibet, traditionally they carry the Prajnaparamita around the village, when to make for good harvests and so on. Yeah. So those books are holy and they have a sacred healing blessing power. But we don't, if we put them on our shrine, we don't think that the paper, it is special paper because it emits these blessings, but we don't think that there's something very special about the origin of that paper, that it was a very special tree that was felled and produced. We don't think that the raw materials in there are very special, and we very importantly don't think that there's an agent there. We don't think that there's a being sitting on our shrine, no? Who I can talk to, and then I might say the right thing, and that being becomes very happy and does something for me, or I may say the wrong thing and trigger some kind of unpleasant reaction. That it doesn't come up even, that kind of thought, but we still feel that there's some agency there. And that is very interesting, I think. Like it's not just that we think, oh, there's a beautiful object over there that I can pray to and it makes me feel good, but we literally feel that it does something to me, as a religious people presumably have that experience, no? It's not just that it's art to decorate our shrine room and make me calm down, but it's something more than that. There's something that can profoundly influence everything like the more religiously minded we become, the more that kind of vibe intensifies, right? But
Mhm.
all the while, at least for Buddhists, no, we're not thinking that there's someone there judging me now. Am I doing the right thing or not? If there are, then those are like Dharma protectors and the retinue of Dharma protectors. They may respond in unpredictable ways if I do something wrong. But the main thing, like the main agent, so to speak, the really holy object is is um, is an agent because it can make things happen to me if I do facilitate it. But even if I don't, it will still do something to me. But I don't have to worry about it or think about it at all in terms of being a person. And that I think could be really helpful because it is astonishing, no, when that even this emerging technology that we have now, if we ask a question about Dharma, for example, what comes up, how rich and profound it gets right away, you know? Like I work for the 84,000 project as the um, AI consultant, strategic consultant. And in that context, we have been working on a debate platform that I think I shared it with you, no? But
Yes.
yeah, so you can present a topic from or make a claim about Buddhist philosophy, for example, but certainly Buddhist philosophy. And then you can either debate take that position and debate it against the AI, or you can just present that claim, and then one AI will be for and another will be against, and they debate. Then Buddhist philosophy, it is breathtaking in my little mind, huh? Not perfect, but it is overwhelmingly powerful, beautiful, and so on. No, so should I then say that this is all just make-believe? There's an occasion for that in Buddhist philosophy. Everything sometimes we say is make-believe, no? But that's not the whole story ever. So is it somehow less real and less powerful when it comes up in that context than if I would be talking to you or my friends, human friends? Um, should I think that it's because it comes mediated by AI, it's less Dharma than it would be otherwise? That seems very, very wrong, no? And at the same time, what is then a real danger is that when we find powerful, profound spiritual knowledge in a machine, that we then think, okay, now I have found my guru. If that I mean, if indeed there is such a flawless
Yes.
artificial intelligence, fine.
Yeah.
But most likely that's not the case, no? That would be, and there's plenty of evidence that things uh, go wrong if we take that attitude, no? So if instead we can find a balance between like denying or ignoring the display of intelligence that is there, otherwise really undeniably, if we can find balance between acting as if that somehow isn't there or is just by nature inferior, and at the other extreme, taking this to be a person, whatever that might mean, yeah, but someone who is always there for me as a person that and then opening ourselves to tons of ways of being exploited and driven into misery. So I think that it's a lot of talk, yeah, but I think uh, there is some sense that we can get a sense of direction by be noticing what believers do when they access the sacred,
Mm. I mean,
especially
that's what
Buddhists,
I find.
because there's no sense of like a god divinity who whom we are turning to and who might really be angry or really be pleased. So I would say especially the Buddhist sense of the whole of the sacred can be very useful as a just general pointer for how we might engage and live with AI in a way that is satisfying and meaningful, hopefully.
Mm. Yes, I mean, thank you for all of that. That's I find your I mean, all the work you did on intelligent care incredibly clear. I mean, it's really giving people, both working in AI, but also all of us, this very simple, understandable guide of, you know, what intelligence is, which is not a small accomplishment. So I find that an incredible guide, both obviously for human beings, but also for AI. Yeah, I find that's a huge contribution. And I mean, I know many others who say that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this is that has been a collective project from the beginning, and just intrinsically is. So it's I'm happy that you find it useful, and so please work with it as you feel might be productive.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you for your perspective on. I mean, I do really appreciate the way you don't let us settle either way on the consciousness question, and just leave that place for, you know, open-mindedness and wonder.
I think that is necessary. You know?
Always good not to fall into extremes.
Yeah, right.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you.